Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here with us today. We are going to be breaking down a wonderfully classic fable, but we're going to look at it through a slightly different lens. We're actually treating the story of Mr. Bear and the Bee as a real-world behavioral case study on unregulated emotions. It's this fantastic, highly structured look at exactly how a tiny, tiny moment of frustration can completely spiral out of control when we just let our impulses take the wheel. So if you appreciate clear, step-by-step breakdowns of how things work, and especially how the human mind works under pressure, well, you are definitely in the right place.
Let's be totally honest for a second. Have you ever let a minor inconvenience ruin your entire day? You know what I mean. Maybe you couldn't find your keys right when you were running out the door, or perhaps some tiny tech glitch made you want to literally throw your laptop out the nearest window. We have all been there. It is human nature to feel that sudden flash of frustration. But what separates a brief moment of annoyance from an absolute disaster is how we handle that initial spark. And today's subject, Mr. Bear, is honestly the perfect example of what happens when we let that spark ignite an entire forest fire.
All right, let's just jump right in. We're starting with a very simple, universal baseline truth. Everybody knows that bears love honey. This introduces Mr. Bear's core motivation right off the bat. He isn't looking for trouble, he's literally just looking for breakfast. We all have our basic needs, our desires, those things that bring us a little comfort. For Mr. Bear, it's honey. And when that baseline expectation isn't met, well, the stage is completely set for conflict.
So that brings us right to section 1, the inciting incident.
This is the very first phase of our analysis, and I want you to really notice how a simple missing item creates an immediate sense of entitlement. It's not just that something is gone, it's that underlying feeling of, I want this right now, and I deserve to have it. Let's walk through the steps that lead Mr. Bear completely away from the safety of his home and straight toward a whole lot of trouble. Step 1. One day, Mr. Bear looks in his cupboard and he can't find any honey. He's like, oh no, no honey. Step 2. Driven by that immediate desire, he stops out into the forest to find some. And then, step 3, he spots a beehive high up in the tree. He smells it, he goes, honey. Notice how direct this progression is. There's no pause, no reflection, it's just a straight line from a perceived lack to an immediate impulsive pursuit.
Let's move on to section 2, a miscalculation of power. Okay, so Mr. Bear has found the honey, but there's a catch. It belongs to someone else. And this is exactly where his ego just totally overtakes his logic. We're looking at a classic tactical mismatch here. On one side, we have Mr. Bear. He's bigger, he's stronger, and he relies entirely on brute force. On the other side, we have the bee. Small, sure, but incredibly fast, agile, and fiercely protective of its property. Mr. Bear looks at this situation purely through the lens of physical size. He completely underestimates the defensive capabilities of his opponent just because they happen to be smaller than him.
And this arrogant assumption is vocalized perfectly in this quote. When the bee flies out and tells him to back off because it's not his honey, Mr. Bear is just annoyed. He actually says, I am bigger than you, and I am stronger than you too. I can do what I want. He literally tells the bee to buzz off. This right here just highlights his complete reliance on physical dominance, completely dismissing the bee's boundaries. He actually thinks his size gives him a free pass to take whatever he wants without any consequences.
Well, as you might guess, that entitlement meets some immediate, painful karmic retribution. Let's break down these 3 swift actions. Step 1, Mr. Bear completely ignores the warning and shoves his paw right back into that beehive. Step 2, the bee, defending its home, engages. Step 3, zing. Ow! Mr. Bear gets stung right on his highly sensitive nose. Action, reaction, instant consequence. The universe, or in this case, a single tiny bee, delivers immediate feedback that brute force absolutely does not equal invulnerability.
Which leads us to section 3, the breaking point.
This is the exact moment in our explainer where physical pain morphs into blinding, destructive rage. Up until now, Mr. Bear was just being greedy, maybe a bit of a bully. But the sting, that changes everything. Look at this list to track his rapidly escalating, entirely irrational behavior. First, he growls in intense anger over his nose. He abandons his goal of getting breakfast and focuses entirely on revenge. He grabs a massive stick to hit the bee. He starts swinging blindly, but the bee is way too fast. As he keeps missing, he gets even angrier, screaming, I will squash you. And finally, when the bee retreats back into the hive, Mr. Bear just loses it. He smashes the hive to pieces. I want you to think about this for a second. Have you ever been so frustrated by a stubborn jar lid or stubbing your toe that you just wanted to smash something? It feels like it might solve the problem in the heat of the moment, doesn't it? But, as we're about to see, giving into that destructive impulse is a huge tactical error.
And here is the fallout. Section 4, the swarm's retaliation.
The pacing really speeds up here, mirroring the utter chaos Mr. Bear has just unleashed on himself. The hive is smashed. The damage is done. But the consequences? They are just getting started. He is now facing a massive mathematical disadvantage. Thousands. Mr. Bear starts to hear this strange sound getting louder and louder. Zzz. Thousands of bees pour out of the wreckage. Because of his blind rage, he isn't fighting a single tiny bee anymore. He literally just declared war on an entire army.
Let's follow this chronological map of his absolute misery as the swarm relentlessly chases him through the forest. It is just a symphony of suffering. By the first second, they're buzzing around his head. Zing, stung on the ear. By the 10-second, zing, zing, stung on the elbow. At the 1-minute mark, as he is desperately sprinting away, he's getting stung on his arms, his legs, his hands. And finally, around 2 minutes in, the ultimate insult to injury, zing, he gets stung right back on the very nose that started this whole temper tantrum. It is a chaotic, relentless retreat.
So let's head into our final phase, Section 5, the ironic conclusion.
Mr. Bear runs all the way home and slams the door shut. Bam! He is finally safe. But that physical defeat is about to give way to a really harsh, ironic psychological realization. He's standing there, crying, counting all his bee stings, and he hears a voice behind him. It's Mrs. Bear. She tells him he lost his temper again. He admits it, and she hands him some bee sting medicine. But then she delivers this absolutely devastatingly ironic revelation. Also, we have honey in the cupboard. It's behind the flower. Wow. Think about the weight of that statement. All of that rage. All of that destruction, thousands of bee stings. And the very thing he wanted was sitting right there in his own kitchen the entire time, just slightly out of view. He just hadn't looked hard enough before he let his frustration completely dictate his actions.
Let's summarize this overarching behavioral case study with a clear, undeniable truth about emotional regulation. The moral of the story: a hot temper always gets you into trouble. It totally narrows your vision. It makes you focus entirely on destroying the obstacle, the bee, rather than creatively solving the actual problem, which was literally just finding breakfast. When we let entitlement and anger escalate, we end up fighting thousands of bees instead of simply looking behind the flower. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. Ask yourself, next time you face a minor inconvenience, next time you can't find your metaphorical honey, are you going to let anger take over and smash a hive? Or will you take a deep breath, regulate your emotions, and just check behind the flower? Thank you so much for joining me today to explore this incredible breakdown. Keep learning, keep reflecting, and I'll see you in the next explainer.